Welcome to Unfolding Scriptures. Tonight's topic is the Dietary Law. And now I want to introduce my guests. To my right is...
I am Elder Shadaniah ben Israel. Shalom.
Shalom, Elder.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom. I am Elder Aharon ben Israel. Shalom.
Shalom, Elder.
Shalom.
Shalom. And my name is Obayahu ben Yehuda, Israel. Shalom.
Shalom. Aki. So now that we've gotten the introductions out of the way, we're going to try to talk a little bit about the Dietary Law and the significance of the Dietary Law. The Dietary Law basically is the list of foods that we should and should not eat. And a lot of people don't realize that this has plays a large role regarding your spirituality. So we're going to try to touch on some of those points so that these points can be brought out so a person can become a little bit more aware of their diet and what they should and shouldn't eat.
Turn to 1 Timothy, the 4th chapter.
Okay.
I want to start here because it speaks of the latter times, and these are the times that we're in. 1 Timothy 4, verse 1.
Okay.
It says, "Now the Spirit expressly says that in the latter times some will depart from the faith, giving heed to deceiving spirits and doctrines of demons, speaking lies and hypocrisy, having their own conscience seared with a hot iron, forbidding to marry and commanding to abstain from foods which Elohim created to be received with thanksgiving by those who believe and know the truth." That's a very important statement for those who believe and know the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Turn to Leviticus, the 11th chapter. Now, many people will tell you that the law is done away with. But now remember what it just said in 1 Timothy. It said, for those who believe and know the truth. And we know that the Father's word is the truth. So let's begin to read this. Leviticus 11, verse 1. It says, "Now Yahweh spoke to Moshe and Aaron, saying to them, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, These are the animals which you may eat among all the animals that are on the earth. Among the animals, whatever divided the hoof, having cloven hoof, and cheweth the cud, that you may eat." I'm going to stop right there for a minute. It says, these are the animals that you may eat. But if we go backwards to Genesis, turn to Genesis. Let's start at the 6th chapter. And we're going to start at verse 13. Here it says, the ark being prepared.
Mm-hmm.
And Elohim said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come up before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Make room in the ark, and cover it inside and outside with pitch. And this is how you shall make it. Then it describes the length of the ark and everything. Now, let's skip down to verse 17. Then it says, and behold, I myself am bringing flood waters on the earth to destroy from under heaven all flesh in which is the breath of life. Everything that is on the earth shall die. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall go into the ark, you, your sons, your wives, and your sons' wives with you. And of every living thing of all flesh you shall bring 2 of every sort into the ark to keep them alive with you. They shall be male and female, of the birds after their kind, of animals after their kind, of every creeping thing of the earth after its kind. 2 of every kind will come to you to keep them alive. And you shall take for yourself of all food that is eaten, and you shall gather it to yourselves, and it shall be food for you and for them. Thus Noah did according to all that Elohim commanded him. So he did. 7, verse 1. It says, then Yahweh said to Noah, come into the ark, you and all your household, because I have seen that you are righteous before me in the generation. You shall take with you 7, each of every clean animal, a male and his female, 2 each of animals that are unclean, a male and his females. Stop. Again, it says clean and unclean. Now, remember when we read back in Leviticus the 11th chapter, it said what? It says the animals you may eat.
Okay.
So from here, we can understand clean and unclean. Not because I said it was clean and unclean,
Okay.
but because the Father said it was clean and unclean. See, this is where people make their mistake at.
Right.
They seem to think that it's a person that said this, but the Father here said clean and unclean.
Very good.
Somebody else?
Yeah, because clean and unclean, I mean, that's self-explanatory. If you eating something that's unclean, what that makes you?
Unclean?
Right. So, I mean, if the Father created all these animals and he gave you an insight regarding, okay, you eat this or you intake of this animal, I guess basically what people fail to realize is that these animals don't coincide with you physically, spiritually. I mean, because over a course of time, something can be taking a toll on you, and you never know what it is if you just ignore some warnings. You see what I'm saying? So if you've already been pre-warned, because the Father didn't say this for,
Right.
just for the sake of just saying something.
Right.
He was saying it for a reason.
Correct.
Because I know of myself, different people that eat different things that's unclean and how they have adverse effect on their bodies.
Absolutely.
And they never think twice about well, maybe it's something I've eaten. And I mean, just think about the diet in which we indulge in as so-called black people. I mean, we eat a lot of unclean stuff.
Oh,
Right.
absolutely.
Well, see, this is why we read now what we can eat and what we cannot eat.
Okay.
But the precedent that was set by the Father, what was clean and unclean, when he brought the flood upon the earth, notice he said, take the clean animals by 7
Right.
and the unclean animals
By 2.
by 2.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because the unclean animals were not to be eaten. They were just for what? For repopulation of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And the clean animals, what? We were taken to repopulate as well as some for food.
Mm-hmm.
You see? So let's go back to Leviticus, the 11th chapter,
Mm-hmm.
and continue to read.
Okay.
It says, verse 4, nevertheless, these you shall not eat among those that cheweth the cud, or those that have cloven hooves. The camel, because it cheweth the cud, but does not have cloven hooves, is unclean to you. Again, that a word is unclean. Then it says, the rock hyrax, because it cheweth the cud, but it does not have cloven hooves, is unclean to you.
Not to cut you off, but break down what a rock, man say rock badger.
Okay, this says hyrax, where they were in what we call the African continent or around about, they have an animal called a hyrax. I guess it's similar to a badger. A badger in Michigan or in Wisconsin, places like that, mostly where badgers are, they're like how can I say? They're a high form of a beaver.
Right.
Yeah.
So they was
Yeah.
right, raccoons.
Yeah.
That family of
Yeah.
I know what you're trying to say. I know
Uh,
exactly what you're trying to say.
Yeah. Beavers.
Right, but they're badgers, but there are some animals within that family that you can eat.
Right, it you could.
Right. But it says the hyrax, yours say the badger. What does yours say?
The cooney or the rock badger.
Okay.
And the coon meaning the raccoon.
Right.
Raccoon.
Yours.
Mine's basically the same
Okay.
with Obiahu says. I like to do something here though,
Okay.
because what we're doing this is good. But what I like to do is kind of like set this whole thing up
Okay.
so that the viewing audience will understand this in full detail. We're talking about diet.
Right.
And what's good for the viewing audience to understand is how this all started.
Right, right.
Okay.
What were we meant to eat from the beginning, and how did this all started? Let's go to the book of Genesis.
Okay.
That's quite all right.
In the book of Genesis, we understand that man, or this is where man was initially created. And we see that the first man here in the book of Genesis that was created was Adam.
Right.
After the Father had created Adam, the Father initially gave Adam a diet. And here in the very first chapter of Genesis, we can see what that diet consisted of. This because it was in the beginning given to Adam. This was the diet that Yah originally intended for man to eat.
Correct.
Nothing more, nothing less. This is what Yah intended. So this is what was meant for man to eat. Okay. Here in chapter 1 of Genesis, let's look at the 29th verse, beginning here. And Yah is explaining this to Adam as he's going along here. He says, and Yah said, see, I have given you herb that yields seeds. I have given you every herb that yields seed, which is on the face of all the earth.
Okay.
And every tree whose fruits yields seeds to you shall be for food.
Okay. Very good.
So that tells us that we are not carnivorous
Meat eaters.
beings. We are not, in other words, we are not meat eaters.
Okay.
Right.
We are what? We are plant eaters. But plants that bore what? Bore seeds. That's what the scripture just said. This is what the Father is explaining to Adam. This is what we eat. Now, when man was initially created, in the beginning,
Okay.
man was perfect.
Right.
Because man was without sin, man had eternal life, and man had a what? Perfect diet to go along with his perfect existence.
Okay.
And what I'm trying to show, what I'm going to eventually show you here, is how our diet coincides with our condition.
Okay.
When I say our condition, I mean as in terms of sinful condition or righteous condition. Man was perfect, righteous. Man had a perfect diet, food that bore seed, trees that bore seed, fruit that bore seed. Perfect diet. Perfect man, perfect diet.
Okay.
All right, now, we know that as time went on, man began to increase in number, and man, because Yah told man, Adam as well as man, to what? To be fruitful and multiply.
Right.
So we know that law was here. Law was here. Yah's word was here. But we know that the Mosaic Law was not here.
No, it wasn't.
You hadn't gained it yet.
Okay, but law was here. So when we read what we just read in Yah explaining to Adam what he could eat and what he was to eat, that was law.
Correct.
Because that was Yah's word. That's what you eat. That's law.
Yeah.
Whatever Yah says, that's law.
That's it.
Right away.
Period.
It's just not Mosaic law.
Right.
Not.
We don't see any mention here about any form of meat that we were supposed to eat.
Correct.
Okay. Again, now man began to multiply upon the face of the earth. And man then began to become evil.
Right.
Man began to sin. Man began to become more and more evil in the eyes of Yah.
Right.
So the Father then makes a decision that he's going to give man a certain amount of time, 120 years to be exact, to get that act together.
Okay. Very good.
Because man is increasingly sinning and increasingly being deficient in their condition, okay, in the Father's eye. So the Father then chooses someone to give him the idea of what his plans are going to be. And we are talking about Noah.
Right.
None other but Noah.
That's it.
Now,
Very good.
we understand that one of the things that Yah told Noah in his explanation to him was that he was going to give man a certain amount of time to recruit, get themselves together, and do the right thing. And if it didn't do it, he was going to destroy them.
Yeah.
No one knew this.
Right.
One of the instructions that was given to Noah was right here in Genesis, what Elder just read.
Okay. Very
In
good.
what, that chapter 7?
Right.
The
Six.
father, or 6,
13.
the Father broke down to Noah the what? Different animals that he were to gather and put upon this ark that he was to build. Because to build the ark was another instruction they had received from Yah.
Right. Right.
Okay, but when he gave Adam this information, he broke down what were clean animals
Right.
and what were unclean animals. And he told them how many of each to put on the ark.
Right.
Now, one of the main reasons why that was not for diet. It was for sacrifice. It was not diet because at that time, man was not eating any meat.
No.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Good
And that's why I want the people to understand this is the way that it was. Now, the flood came, and then the flood went away. So the Father had accomplished what he had set out to do in destroying man because man was such in a sinful state. All right, now, when we look here in the book of Genesis, we'll go to chapter 9. We see here where the flood has now subsided. The water has gone down, and now man is somewhat, with Noah and his family, man is now beginning to start all over again.
Okay.
Starting from scratch, so to speak. But Yah still has not forgotten about the sinful nature of man. So the Father now changes the diet that he's going to allow man to eat because man has changed himself. So remember, so our diet changes with the very condition that we're in Yah's eyes.
Okay.
Man is sinful state, a down state, man now is going to receive a new diet. And his diet is not going to be a perfect one because man is not perfect anymore.
Not so.
Not.
So when we look right here, I believe it's in 9,
Okay.
and then we go to, let's look at, let's begin with 9 and 1. It says, So Yah blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, Be fruitful and multiply, originally a law given to Adam. And fill the earth, and the fear of you and the dread of you shall be on every beast of the earth, on every bird of the air, on all that move on the earth, and all the fish in the sea. They are given into your hands. Every moving thing that lives shall be what?
For food.
Every moving thing. Oh, every moving thing. So this is Yah's new diet given to man because he's what? Fallen.
Right.
When he says every moving thing, that will be inclusive of what?
Unclean.
Unclean food. Because we are in an unclean condition.
Right.
So because man fell and Yah is distasteful with us at this point in time, he is not happy with us at this time, he gives us a bum diet, a lousy diet, because we are in a lousy condition. So man can eat anything that moves. That's what it just said.
Right.
But we know that we are still, at this point, have not reached what we call the Mosaic covenant. This is still Yah's law, though. Now, we know that when Moses and our people left out of Egypt, we were given a new diet because Yah had chosen a people to be holy in his eyes. So our condition, or the condition of us, was elevated. Not perfect, but, so to speak, half perfect.
Right.
Okay.
So therefore, we knew that if our diet coincides with our condition, and our condition coincides with our diet, that meant that our diet was about to change.
Right.
That's a flag. Red flag goes up. We are a holy people to Yah, a special treasure unto Yah. That means that, something concerning our diet is about to change. Because our condition has what? Changed. And he's giving us a new start. So that's where we look at what is called the Mosaic Law, because through Mosaic being the liaison between us and him, we see that we are given unclean and clean things to eat now.
Right.
Whereas before we could eat anything, clean and unclean, but now we can only now eat clean food. So our diet improved. but our condition also improved because the responsibility of Israel at this time now started. We were chosen now. So that's where we are right now.
Right.
And we're explaining to you, the audience, that this is where we are yet still today. Because our condition hasn't changed. In fact, our condition now is much worse than it was then.
Right.
So obviously our diet has not what? Has not increased or improved by being able to bless over it or pray over it or whatever. Our diet is still the same. So obviously in the end we see that when man is elevated to the most perfect condition, just as we were in the beginning, we will then also have a perfect diet once again, because we will be only eating of what? The tree of the herb, or the seed or fruits from the what? From the tree of life.
Right. That's it.
Exactly, which bears seeds. So again, our condition, and I just want to show you that there is a direct relationship between our condition as men and our relationship and our food or our diet. There is a connection there. I don't know if you've ever seen that or you know that. Anyone in the viewing audience, but there is a direct connection. And what we're trying to prove to you right now is that we now, in the condition that we're in, we are very limited to what we can eat.
Right.
And that's all I want to say. So I just set up for you to understand it now.
Okay, very good.
But also understand, back here in Genesis, this is something that we seem to looked over.
Okay.
Was that, let me see, go back to Genesis 8. I'm sorry, Genesis 9. Genesis 9 and 4. It say, but flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall ye not eat.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
You can't,
That's right.
you can't indulge in eating meat, and you can't eat blood.
Right.
Right.
Okay. So that has never changed.
Never.
And,
That's right.
And blood, when you eat blood, that takes on, it gives you a different, it changes your spiritual outlook, because blood, by being a life force, blood carries spirit, and regardless to whatever it is that you're eating, you can't eat blood.
Right.
No.
The Father is directly, he's against you eating any form of blood.
Right.
No blood sausage.
No.
Not so.
Right. So, I mean,
That's never changed, like you said.
if you eat blood, blood makes you aggressive anyway. If a person eats rare meat,
A lot of people do that.
a lot of rare meat,
Mm-hmm.
they tend to be somewhat aggressive,
Okay.
because blood makes you ravenous, because that's what it's the life force. And like I said before, it also carries a spirit. It also carries disease too.
Right. That's it.
So you have to be careful about eating blood.
And I want to add to that, blood is one of the worst ways, or one of the main ways that that carries most bacteria. That is one of the best ways, so to speak, to transfer bacteria from one thing to another. Blood itself, actually, that's a fact. You know, when we have, like for example, what is called septicemia, which is a form of infection of the blood. The blood is one of the most key ways, one of the main ways to transport any type or any form of bacteria. So you have to be really careful about about eating food that has blood in it. You can't. That's something you can't do. Now, if I'm not mistaken, that was one of the things, like Kazakio said, that this has always been since day one. You could never eat anything with this life still in it, which is the blood. And I believe that when we look over into the New Testament, I believe that was one of the four things that the Father or
Right.
the heads of the church at
Right.
that time at Jerusalem decided to give or to explain to the
Right.
Gentiles that they couldn't do.
Right.
Well, and that was one of the four.
Right.
So that was really a big thing.
Peter James.
Eating food or anything with his life force still in it.
Okay.
But see, just think for a minute. If you eat flesh, okay, and once you buy, okay, once the flesh has been killed, and they get it in the store, okay, for whatever span of time that is, once you buy it, and then from the time you take it and cook it, prepare it, do whatever you do to it, you got to remember that flesh starts to rot.
Decay, yes it does.
Okay? Now, if flesh is sitting inside your body, you have to go through a process to digest and go
Right.
through the different changes that and break it down so that you can discard it. But at the same time, that's still flesh and it's still rotting.
Yes
Right.
it
And
is.
it's still decaying.
Rigor mortis.
It can decay inside of you,
Absolutely.
Yes, it
which can
does.
increase in disease
Especially this
Right.
and create different toxins.
Right.
So basically, we know that man was not made to eat meat.
No, it was not.
No.
It was not.
So for the most part, the Father gave him a diet of herbs, of fruit or foods that bear seed.
Okay.
So, like you said, Elder, you know that man, when he began to eat flesh, he had fallen.
Yeah.
I mean, fallen hard
Real hard.
for the Father to permit him to eat flesh.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay?
Very good.
But, okay, again, as the elder said, so we went, so our diet went.
Okay.
So the Father had elevated us to the diet to which we have now.
Okay.
This is what we're speaking of when we talk about the dietary law that's in the scripture.
Okay.
Now, we know that man wasn't intended to eat meat, but the Father allows us to eat some meat.
Right.
Before we could eat all meats, whether clean or unclean, but now he specifies,
Right.
and this is what we were reading about,
Okay.
what he specified that we could eat and what we could not eat.
Exactly.
See, people don't understand what high blood pressure and diabetes,
Right.
and all these other obesity and all these other diseases that we're getting today, where it comes from and how we got to be that way.
Right.
So what we must do is we must adhere as closely to what the Father permits as possible.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like Elder say, you can't say you're going to pray over something that the Father deems
Told you not
unclean.
to touch.
Right.
Right.
He done told you it's unclean.
That's right.
And remember what it says. What is sin? The transgression of the law.
That's what it is.
It's sin.
So
Right.
he who sins transgresses the law.
That's right.
Huh? The wages of sin is what?
Death.
Death.
Right.
Now, just because you eat whatever it is that's unclean, or the Father said is unclean, and it don't kill you right away, you seem to think that it's all right
Right.
to keep doing it.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, not understanding that you're slowly killing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So you're agonizing. And at the same time,
Yeah.
you sinning.
That's right.
And you're not repenting.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. And the thing, Ellie, but you know what, Elder? Here's the thing, though. I'm going to show you the type of people that we are. Generally, normally by nature as people. when we break Yah's laws because of something that we want to do,
Right.
and we're naturally built that way.
Yeah.
When we die as a result of eating all different kinds of foods and what have you, the first thing we might say is, "Oh, Yah took you." Oh, well,
Yeah.
we know that Yah's behind everything, but here's the thing. Why do we always blame Yah, or sometimes blame Yah, for something that we did to ourselves?
Right.
If you know you're not supposed to eat it, or you know the scripture says you're not supposed to eat it,
Right.
and you die from it, you die as a result of eating it, then you basically you took yourself out of here.
Yes,
Right.
Because you violated a law. You violated a rule.
Yes.
Okay.
You went directly against Yah's word.
Okay.
So now how can you then say he did or he took your, you took yourself out.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
When you do things to break the law, you run through a red light, and you get T-boned and you're out of there, you check out of here, guess what? It's because you broke the law.
That's it.
Absolutely.
When you smoke cigarettes, cigarettes are bad for you, and you wind up dying because of cancer. We know, like I said, we know that Yah knows everything,
Right.
but he didn't take you out of here, not like that. You took
Right.
yourself out of here.
Right.
Disobedience.
Right, because you broke the law.
Just because
You
he don't mention smoking,
Right,
but if you're destroying the temple
right,
in which you got,
right.
Right.
then you are.
Smoke is of no benefit to you.
Right.
It's only
Right.
None.
Only
Why? Because the Father gave you two filters. One is your nasal, and the other is your lung.
Right.
They teach you in this country to do what is called Western style breath, or shallow breathing. So you breathe through your mouth, and you bypass the first filter, and you clog up the second filter, which
Right.
is your lung. Not understanding that if you watch a baby, it's called baby's breath, and the baby breathes from what? Your diaphragm. So your diaphragm works. Why? You pull the air straight through your nostrils, your first filter, down through your second filter,
Okay.
which is your lungs.
Right.
And it cleans it
Right.
and brings it where? To the center of your body, where it can go what? All over your body.
Right.
Purified.
Right.
But when you breathe through your mouth, when you inhale through your mouth and exhale through your mouth, you're damaging yourself
Right.
with all the pollution that's in the air.
Right.
But that's another thing. Here, right now, we talking about what you eating, what you putting inside of your body.
Right. Right. Okay, I got a question real quick. Now we're talking about the dietary law,
Right.
and we're instructing viewing orders concerning the word, what we are to eat and what we're not supposed to eat. Now, this is my question. Can we get specific on the things that's 90% in the grocery stores that people buy? What's clean, what's unclean? Because folks watching it, they're not understanding what's clean, what's not clean. Can we get more specific?
Yeah, well, we can read some more
Okay.
of what's here. Let's go back to Leviticus the 11th chapter, at verse 6. After it says about the hyrax, then it said it's unclean to you. Then it says the hare, or the rabbit as you call it,
Okay, can you?
because it cheweth the cud, but does not have cloven hooves, is unclean to you. Then it says, and the swine, or the pig, whether it's corn-fed or yard-fed or however, whether it's kosher or whatever, it says the swine,
Man.
though it divides the hooves, has cloven hooves, yet does not chew the cud, is unclean. Do you hear that? It is unclean to you. Their flesh you shall not eat, and their carcass you shall not touch. They are unclean to you. Now notice, this is, so far, this is the only animal that we done read about where it said it is unclean to you. You cannot even touch the carcass of it. That's strange. Huh?
It is. And to be more specific, so far up to this point that we've read, to answer Obiyahu's question, the main thing or the main issue here that we are very, very, very high on eating, us as a people, is pork.
Yes, we do.
So basically,
the other way.
you know, there's other things here that we talk about, but this is the main thing. We don't see people eating camels and what have you.
Right.
Most of our people do eat pork. So to answer your question, one of the, I would say probably number one, for our examples, the number one example is pork.
Right.
And now that's here so far. And there's another one that's going to come up in a minute that I think is number two.
Right. It says, then it says, these you may eat of all that are in the water.
Okay.
Listen, it says, whatever in the water has fins and scales, whether in the sea or in the rivers, that you may eat. But all in the sea or in the river that do not have fins and scales, all that move in the water or any living thing which is in the water, they are an abomination to you.
Say it again, Elder. An abomination.
They are an abomination to you. They shall be an abomination to you. You shall not eat their flesh, but you shall regard their carcass as an abomination.
Okay.
Whatever in the water does not have fins or scales, they shall be an abomination to you. No catfish.
Number two.
No,
That's number two.
no
That's
shrimp.
number two. That's number two.
No
Crab.
no crab, no lobster,
Absolutely.
no clams,
That's
no oysters,
No squid.
no
Octopus.
right, none of that.
Exactly.
Sea roaches.
And the
Right.
key here is, Yah says that anything that we eat from the seas or the rivers or the waters must, number one, have fins, and number two, must have scales.
Right.
Catfish do not fit that category because they do possess fins, but they do not possess scales.
Right.
And whether
So
you
that
raise
eliminates the catfish.
right, and whether you raise them on the farm or not,
Right.
they still a scavenger.
Still scavengers.
Absolutely.
So we see the greatest two examples of your question, Obiyahu, is pork and catfish.
Yeah.
Most of us raised on the two.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
of course.
see, and that's our excuse. Well, my mama fed me this. Well, I'm sorry to say, our mothers were wrong.
Yeah.
Our grandmothers were wrong.
Yeah.
But that was what they were given to eat.
Right.
Remember?
They couldn't
When we
read.
were in chattel slavery, they gave you the insides of the hog.
Yeah.
And the feet, and the ears, and the tails.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
what they gave you to eat.
So that diet basically was forced on us,
Right.
Correct.
but by being forced on us, that don't mean that we have to keep it.
That's right.
Absolutely.
We don't have to continue it, or just because we like it. See, that's another thing. Just because it tastes good. Remember, I didn't make it unclean. The Father made it unclean.
Absolutely.
So you say you follow, you want to do what the Father say do, but yet and still you don't want to follow His word
All right.
You want to let go of that swine.
and nothing else
Pork chop.
that's unclean
That's
to
right.
you.
But I'm just saying, I just mentioned swine because that's like, that's a part of, just like some of us breathing.
Yeah.
You got to have swine
Right.
in your diet.
Right.
I mean, they
You
cover
got
so
to have
many.
that ham hock in them greens.
Right.
Hot dogs.
You got to have it I mean, it's in so many different foods, and
Yep.
I mean, in so many different varieties.
Yeah.
Right.
But we as a people are dying readily from what is it, diabetes and
Right.
high blood pressure,
All of that.
Yep.
all of this stuff, and
Hypertension. Yep.
right, hypertension, and we never think about the Father told you not to eat that.
Right.
Absolutely. Right.
Period. Don't eat it.
But see, that's what the man that's standing in front of you on a Sunday morning, he's supposed to be reading this to you.
But he eat it
not
himself.
Right. But
Right.
he's not supposed to be telling you about the dream he had on his way down to the church. Or while he was laying up in his bed. He's supposed to be reading to you what the Father's word is and explaining that to you.
He can't tell you, Elder, if he eat it himself.
Right.
I understand that.
Right.
That's why we're here to
That's
tell
right.
them.
But see, they take license from reading 2 Timothy, and they run with that, not knowing that that's not law.
No.
They take Timothy's epistle and put it in front of what we read now.
Right, but I read 1 Timothy, it said, for those who believe
Right.
That's key.
and know the truth.
But it reads a little different in the
Yeah.
Living Bible.
Well, that's
Oh,
more-
yeah?
Yeah,
Well,
want me to read it?
Read it. Read what it says.
And they use this.
That's more of a person's opinion being
Right. Absolutely.
being
Christian,
brought out.
this is a Christian
That's why
minded.
they're so popular.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
They love this. What was that?
2 Timothy.
2 Timothy 4th. 2 Timothy 4th chapter. No, 3 and 1. It says, you may as well know this too, Timothy, that in the last day it is going to be very difficult to be a Christian. For people will love only themselves and their money. They will be proud and boastful. That's not it. You sure it was 1 Timothy?
Mm-hmm.
1 Timothy
1 Timothy 4.
4 and 1?
I think.
Oh, 4 and 1. I'm sorry.
Right.
It says, but the Holy Spirit tells us clearly that in the last time some in the church will turn away from Christ and become eager followers of teachers with devil-inspired ideas. These teachers would tell lies with straight faces and do it so often that their conscience won't even bother them. They will say it is wrong to be married and wrong to eat meat, even though God gave these things to well-taught Christians to enjoy and be thankful. For everything God made is good, and we may eat it gladly if we are thankful for it, and if we ask God to bless it, for it is made good by the word of God in prayer. If you explain this to the others of your will be doing your duty as a worthy pastor who is fed by faith and by the true teaching you have followed.
Question, did it say anything about unclean foods, or did it just say something about meat?
It just went straight through it. For everything God made is good, and we may eat it gladly if we are thankful for it.
They need to take that and throw that in a fire
Right.
somewhere and burn
But
it
see,
up.
the point I was trying to make
Yeah.
is that this is an epistle, and there's a difference between
Right.
an epistle and
A book.
sanctified a book or the word of Yah
Right.
out of the mouth of Yah
Right.
versus out of the mouth of Timothy.
Right.
Even though this ain't correct, but even if Timothy did say that, Timothy don't have the
License.
authority
Nope.
to say you can eat anything.
Right.
Right.
You know, Timothy was an apostle. He didn't have the authority to say you can eat whatever you want to eat. Only Yah has that authority.
That's it.
So I just wanted to make that point.
But you need to remember that, a lot of those epistles were geared toward Gentile,
Hmm.
and Gentiles, by that council, if I'm not mistaken, they weren't required to observe the Dietary Law.
Okay.
Not as strict. The only thing they had to abstain from things with blood.
Okay.
But no, this is what I'm saying. Just hear me out. What I'm saying is, the confusion came in when there's a distinct difference between the Gentile and the Israelite
Right.
and that council, and they were told certain things to do and not to do.
In that day.
in that day.
Right.
Right.
That's what I'm talking about, not in this day. I'm talking about when you read in the day of Timothy.
Make
Right.
it plain.
So, you know, that's where a lot of confusion comes in too. That the about something that you know, we always talk about how by that being a transitional period, they were trying to get people to come and embrace the word.
Right.
So for the most part, a lot of those epistles were geared toward whatever a person was doing. Not so much that it wasn't important, because it is important
Right.
to cut that off, but to concentrate on the Messiah.
Which was more important.
Right.
Right.
So that's what basically you're looking at when
Right.
you read those different epistles, and it
Epistles, right.
sounds as though it's saying do anything you want to do,
Yeah.
because it's not saying that.
No, it's
I wanted
not.
to go there. Reason why I did, because I know that's where the viewing audience is going.
Right.
That's why I went there.
Right.
But we, now go ahead.
Okay, all right, now, in playing the devil's advocate here,
Right.
so to speak, personally, they say, well, you know what? I go to a book.
Mm-hmm.
And I do more than go to a book. I go to the Word of Christ.
Okay.
Then they'll say, well, okay, go to Matthew 15th chapter.
Okay.
And here is one of the most misunderstood, misinterpreted
Yeah.
areas of the book that we could possibly think of.
Right.
Because, you know, at least a person who goes to this point, at least they're looking at Yahushua's word.
Right.
But the problem here is that they don't understand what he's saying.
Right.
So they
Right.
go.
So let's go to a very huge falsehood or a very huge misnomer here
Okay.
and resolve this, because a lot of people take this to mean exactly what we're talking about.
Right.
People think it's okay to eat anything they want to eat.
That's not so.
It says here, Matthew 15:1 begins, it says, then the scribes and the Pharisees who were from Jerusalem came to Yahushua saying, why do your disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? For they do not wash their hands when they eat bread. For they do not wash their hands when they eat bread. I said that twice because that is key, or that is very instrumental here in understanding what the principle of this whole, 15th chapter is about.
Okay.
Especially for the first 10 verses.
Okay.
Back up a couple of words also.
Mhm.
The traditions of the elders.
Right, exactly.
That's,
Exactly.
that's what this is about.
Right.
So Yahushua then answered and said to them,
Mm-hmm.
why do you also transgress the commandments of Yah? Because of your tradition. Okay, now we see a group of people here,
Mm-hmm.
a group of people, or a group, or one of the sects, or one of the groups here are questioning Yahushua about his followers, about the disciples. Why are you guys not washing your hands before you eat? Why do you forsake the traditions of the elders?
Yep.
Yahushua's immediate and first response is, why do you disrespect Yah's laws because of these goofy traditions?
Yes, correct.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you place more value on the traditions of our fathers, who are my fathers as well?
Right.
Why do you place more value there than you place on our Father's word
That's it.
or his laws?
Right.
For what? For Yah commanded, saying, honor your father and your mother, and he who curses father or mother, let him be put to death. But you say, whoever says to his father or mother, whatever profit you might have received from me as a gift to Yah, then he need not honor his father or mother. Thus you have made the commandment of Yah of no effect, but by your tradition.
Mm-hmm.
He says hypocrites. He calls them hypocrites.
Right.
Well did Isaiah prophesy. We mentioned that earlier, I believe, in a different show about Yahushua talking about and quoting Isaiah often.
Right.
So well did Isaiah prophesy about you.
Right.
saying, these people draw near to me with their lips, with their mouth, same thing, but honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. And in vain they worship me, teaching the doctrines of commandments of men. 10. When he had called the multitude to himself, he said to them, hear and understand. He says, it is not what goes into the mouth that defiles a man, but what comes out of the mouth, this defiles a man. This is where the great confusion comes in.
Right.
People are thinking that because Yahushua said this, and he is Christ, and what he says goes, which is true, they understand this to believe that you can eat anything that you want to eat.
Right.
Because it's not what goes into the mouth that defiles you.
Right.
It's what comes out of the mouth that defiles you. And he says this. So this is what they're equating with eating any kind of food.
Right.
So then his disciples came and said unto him, do you know that the Pharisees were offended when they heard this saying? But he answered and said, every plant which my heavenly Father has not planted will be uprooted. Let them alone. They are blind leaders of the blind. And if the blind leads the blind, both will fall into a ditch. Then Peter answered and said to him, explain this parable to us. Here is the key. If you read Mark 7,
okay,
it is about this very same thing that we're reading right now. But it doesn't explain this as well as Matthew 15 does.
Okay.
Because here is the key to what the essence of this whole thing is about.
Right.
It says, then Peter answered and said to Yahushua, explain this parable to us.
Right. Right.
I'm going to read this quick because we got 1 minute.
Okay.
Explain this parable to us. This is important. So Yahushua said, are you still without understanding? Do you not understand that whatever enters the mouth goes into the stomach and is eliminated? But those things which proceed out of the mouth come from the heart. These are the things that defile a man. For out of the heart proceeded evil thoughts, murderers, adulterers, fornicators, thefts, false witness, and blasphemies. These are the things which defile a man. Here's the key, watch this. But to eat with unwashed hands does not defile a man. He's only talking about things that we eat with unwashed hands here. It says, it's not here, but to eat things with unwashed hands does not defile a man. This is the explanation of the parable itself, because this is a parable.
That's about